Today we're going to talk about the GNOME, Wayland, Fedora, and X situation and ask this question: is it time to drop X? We'll talk about this in today's video. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. Leave a like and a comment down below. And today we do want to talk, of course, about Wayland, X, GNOME, Fedora. These seem to be the intersection of what is going on in the movement, maybe the forced movement of your window compositors over from X to Wayland. I have been deeply critical of this push in the past, and I still remain not deeply critical, but and understand I've always had this not because I resist change, not because Wayland sucks. It's just that Wayland wasn't ready yet. Is it ready now? I think it's close enough now that we can start slowly migrating. And the reason I want to put it that way is I started using Linux when it was just getting really good. I remember the days of things not working right. I remember the days of buggy software and crashing a lot. I remember the days of not being able to get things to work. And the challenge is, with a Wayland-only system, more often than not, you still have a lot of those issues. And so if everybody and their brother start switching to Wayland too fast, what happens is we revert from a good, stable, functional system that we have now onto something that is not as stable. There's a lot of broken applications and a lot of issues. And in reality, you can get onto some of these desktops that are running Wayland by default, and they still have a lot of apps in their app stores and their software stores that still require X. And so you have a really bad experience for a new user that doesn't understand these things, that you get onto some Wayland-only system and you're looking for a good screen recorder and you find there really isn't one. And there still really isn't one, which is kind of funny. Also, remote desktop doesn't work super well, although there's been some updates in that in the recent years. So why are we talking about this again? Well, because we're having a few changes. One of those is that Fedora is now officially, now they did say they're going to drop X in 41. That didn't end up happening. They dropped it too prematurely in 42 and kind of backstepped, but they said in 43, there will be no more X. We're not going to do it. And this coincides with GNOME, because GNOME at 48 still has X capabilities. 49, they are going to do a soft stop of X, which means it's still kind of there, but it's not enabled. So it's up to the developer if they want to enable this in a flag in the compiler. And then in 50, they're planning on completely removing the X, which there's the good part. Okay, here's the good part about that is that all of this extra X code, it is big. It causes this is really what caused these distros to creep up. When I started using Linux, distros were just over a gig, and now like Ubuntu is like 6 gigs to download. A lot of this is, yeah, they're cramming in extra nonsense. A lot of it is they have to support 2 entire window compositors. So it does make sense at some point in time to cut it back, as we'll see distributions drop back down in size in a very large degree if they can stop supporting one of them. So it does make sense in a limited base, in a limited capacity, to drop support. But as we'll see in our last article today, Ubuntu is kind of going, can you guys hold back a little bit here? Because we ain't ready. And so we do want to chat about these. So the first is, I started looking up when is Fedora getting rid of it, and I saw all these articles Fedora from last year. Fedora 41 drops the GNOME Xorg sessions. And I'm like, wait, I'm still seeing this stuff in 42. Well, it turned out they didn't actually drop them. They wanted to, but it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And of course, 41 released, and I didn't write down the GNOME version of 41. I think the GNOME version of Fedora 41, I think is 47. I could be wrong about that. And they really started to deprecate it a little bit. They started to really prioritize the Wayland sessions inside of GNOME 47 and Fedora 41. So 42 just dropped a couple months ago. We are going to be looking at it very soon. I've installed it on a VM. We'll probably do that video sometime this week. We're going to have a look at what Fedora 42 looks like and what they actually did here. Now, Fedora 42 runs GNOME 48. So the challenge here is that a number of people were just expecting the same type of results, and apparently a lot of people are still using X even on Fedora. And so we had a lot of these discussion boards come, but hey, just updated my Fedora from 41 to 42. He says here it's a Cinnamon install. He also has GNOME, Cosmic, and Budgie installed. I had replaced Cinnamon Login Manager with GDM. So what is that, Light DM, I think, with GDM, which is probably the default. It almost sounds like he may have started on a community spin or something, because standard Fedora does come with GDM. Cinnamon would come with Light DM. So up to now, I was able to select all DEs in GDM, Wayland, and X. After the update, GDM only offers Wayland Session, GNOME, GNOME Classic, and Cinnamon Wayland Experimental. Probably do. I'm actually curious why Cosmic's not in there, because Cosmic is Wayland dependent. In fact, I did some testing on the Cinnamon. Was it? No, I think it was Arch with Cosmic on X doesn't work. I'm curious why Cosmic is not in his list, but this is probably due to 48 and Fedora 42 builds without X support. And he says, I want to continue to boot into Budgie and Cinnamon X sessions. Do I need to replace GDM with a different login manager to achieve this? So the post happens that they basically released 42 GDM without any X support at all. And they actually went against their policy of accepting the change first. And so they actually allegedly reverted it back, so you could get into it. Now, I say allegedly because on my 42 build, I went in and I only had Wayland options in there. I had Wayland and I had GNOME Classic. And GNOME Classic I thought was going to be X, so I go into the system and it turns out that that was still a Wayland session. So I actually had to, according to this, that should be resolved. I did do full system updates. There's nothing else to update, but I still was not able to access that X session. So I basically installed the GDM X sessions or GNOME X sessions. I forget exactly which one I installed. Now on my GDM, I have the ability to log in with X. So, and then I go into the About system and it does confirm we are also running the X session. So the code is still there. It's just GDM apparently is not allowing you to do it. It's supposed to be resolved, but in my particular instance, it wasn't possible. That's because I was on a VM. I don't know. But for whatever reason, it is still there. If you, in worst case scenario, you need to run some code, and the code would enable the ability to log in under X as well, which should in theory restore all of his Budgie and his Cinnamon sessions as well. So this is of course 42. They tried to remove it in the soft removal format. Remember, GNOME 48 still has all of the code for X. All right, so now what we're seeing, though, is in 43, which is scheduled to come out around October of this year, October 2025, they are going to drop X support altogether. Now, I could not find, for the life of me, which version of GNOME they're planning to run in 43. Is it 49, which has the X code in it, but is soft disabled? Or are they running 50, which has all of the X components removed entirely? So GNOME 50 expect to be a lot more streamlined, a lot smaller of a package, as it no longer has to support all of that excess baggage of the X. And so Fedora 43 is going to move to Wayland only, officially removing X11 support. I believe that's now approved. So despite we saw it in 41, didn't happen. 42 happened, but without the proper approval channel. 43, it does look like the approval channels are in, and 43 is going to be completely free of X. That seems to be the case. And so they've decided to move exclusively to the Wayland graphical platform for its GNOME desktop environment starting in Fedora 43, scheduled for release in late October or early November. And if somebody in the comments can tell me which version of GNOME is Fedora 43 planning to ship with, let me know. It's possible they don't know yet. I just don't know the answer to that. So I didn't pull up an article on this, but as I said, GNOME 48 still has X, but they're really prioritizing Wayland. GNOME 49 is going to have a soft disable. So something like a builder compiling it or a distribution could enable it by running the compile with the flag to re-enable X, but GNOME 50 will not have the X code at all. And so I don't know, is Fedora 43 going with GNOME 49 or 50? So mostly they're basically going in here. Now, this is not necessarily loved by everybody. As it turned out looking at 42, there were still a number of people that were like this. And the question was becoming about, what's the deal with completely removing it? And there were a number of places that I saw. I hope it's on my next article here, because with GNOME dropping X support, Ubuntu comes out, it's like, this is possibly going to be a problem because Ubuntu's next LTS, 2604, plans on shipping GNOME 50, which should be ready by then, of course. And the challenge they're having is now we have an LTS without X support, and Ubuntu really thinks we need at least one more LTS with the ability to run Xcode. So Ubuntu and GNOME is talking. Maybe they will flip their minds and opinions, and maybe they'll keep the Xcode in there for one more release, and maybe they'll completely pull it in 51. I think that would be the best overall option. That way, it's a lot easier for Ubuntu to enable an X session on an LTS, which does make more sense. Alternatively, Ubuntu could backtrack and say, we're going to use GNOME 49 so they can compile it with the X session capabilities, but Ubuntu likes to go shiny and new, and so rather than sticking with the 49, they're just going to complain and still want to use 50. I don't know if that's a good plan or not. But the march to Wayland on the future continues. GNOME looking to drop support for X session as soon as this year, far sooner than Ubuntu would like. So Ubuntu 2604, due out next year, had been planning to ship GNOME 50 and X, according to the reports. And per GitLab, GNOME wants to remove all X session code, which allows the desktop to run the aging Xorg display server by GNOME 50. Once gone, GNOME on Xorg will, in their words, be entirely unsupported configuration. Now, X Wayland is not affected, so if you're running something through X Wayland, that should still work. So, of course, Ubuntu already defaults to running GNOME on Wayland, including on NVIDIA hardware, and it ships a fallback Xorg X11 session for those who need it or prefer it for edge reasons. Screen recorders is a good example. Now, I'm recording this on OBS. OBS does work under Wayland, but most screen recorders I've tested really don't. I've tried a lot. They don't. The Ubuntu or the GNOME built-in one does, but it doesn't record audio, so it's effectively useless for screen recording as a YouTuber, unless I'm recording my audio as completely separate tracks and then merging them together. But even then, it's hard to align it without at least some form of base audio to align everything to. So there you have it, folks. Fortunately, OBS works, so that's good news. So, it's not so much that GNOME itself not running on the aged display server that's the kicker, but as far as X session code removal goes, edge cases, it may affect Ubuntu's point of view as downstream distro planning on the next LTS. So that's really the problem. So running 49, GNOME 49, they can basically remove X out and leave it up to the developers or the distros to compile the capability to use it. But to completely remove it really, really muddles the downstream waters. And that really is what is at the point of this. So ultimately, here's kind of my thought. I think that maybe GNOME should keep that code in there, one more version, just let Ubuntu have its LTS. Since Ubuntu is such a large distribution, letting them have one more LTS with the capability of X is good, and then GNOME at 41, remove it. That's probably your best bet. Now, a distribution like Fedora that is already removing X and it's planning to remove X, they can just not compile it. And if they want, maybe they can, remove some of that code or just deal with it for one more version of GNOME. That's probably okay as well. As far as my thoughts on this, I actually, believe it or not, guys, I think this is a good idea. And the reason is it is limited to one desktop, and in the instance here, it's limited to one distro, being Fedora. No Xcode at all. Let's get one mainstream distribution, only Wayland, no Xcode at all, strip it all out. Here's why this is good. It gives the developers of the software now a place to test without any fallback. But those of us like myself who don't want to jump onto Wayland because it's the shiny new thing, I just need a fully functional system, I'm going to be sticking back with Linux Mint, who is taking a much more cautionary approach towards Wayland, rightly so, because Wayland does objectively break things. And we don't want to go back to a world where Linux begins to break all the time, particularly in a time when people are forced to upgrade their systems or switch to Linux. So it's good that we have the option in order to allow the people who really want to have Wayland only to have a good system, and you're happy on your GNOME and you're happy on your Fedora, great. You have no Xcode at all to get in your way. But for those of us that still need some of the legacy systems, we're doing stuff not as tinkerers or hobbyists, but as full-fledged productive people. I don't have time to tinker with getting Wayland to work. I don't have time to figure out a new way of doing something that worked perfectly fine under X because you want something new and shiny. Okay? So I do actually think this is a good idea. For one desktop, one distro, to completely drop it, completely strip it, completely remove it, so we have a better frame of reference for what can work and what can't work in the long haul. So I think that really is the greatest place. I do want to end the video just scanning through some of the comments. There were a lot of comments on the bottom of the Ubuntu one. There's 230 comments. We are not going through all these. I just kind of want to scan over because there were some of these that were actually pretty good. So this guy here, have you seen the difference between Xorg and Wayland to make print screen? At the moment for work, we use KSnip because the feature, one of the features it provides. Now we're 3 coworkers using the app daily to provide the users with explanations they need. One keyboard click and I can select zoom picture. So far, Wayland is not ready for more from what I can see. We can talk about the productivity is something else too. It's just not good / practical as before. It's the same reason we use LTS, but I test Wayland from time to time to see if it has worked. So here's a case of a person that has a legitimate work need. We're not here tinkering. We're not here doing all, we just need to get stuff done. So that is that guy's take. This guy says, oh, I know right now the X server is working great for me and Wayland's still buggy, but we need to push things forward. Yep. So again, we're seeing that people down here, Wayland is not ready for mainstream, and I don't think it's ready for mainstream. I think that the number of distributions trying to ditch X too prematurely and jump to Wayland is a mistake. But I think for one distribution that's committed behind it to switch, I think that is a very good thing. It gives us a place to test. And hey, a little bit of diversity here. If I want to run Wayland only, I can go over there. If I want to really stick to X until, it's pried from my cold, dead, rusty hands, well, Linux Mint's here for you folks with experimental Wayland. If you want experimental Wayland, that's cool. This guy is under the Wayland camp. It's wait time, take X out behind the shed, shoot it and throw it in the shallow grave. It's old, antiquated, obsolete, doesn't belong in this century. Good riddance. If you'd have trouble with Waylands, I feel for you, but maybe it's time to upgrade your ancient machine to something more modern or compatible. AMD comes to mind. So this guy's basically like, hey, let's follow the Windows 11 approach. You have a perfectly good working computer. Get rid of it. Get something modern, you pleb. I'm sorry, Brian. We can't all go to the store and buy something brand new and modern. We can't all, nor should we all. We should not fill up the landscapes with perfectly good working computer because a couple of software ideologues want to have Wayland push on everybody and say, kill X, kill X, kill X. No, X still works. It still is functional. It still is highly productive for those of us that want to use it. I'm okay with the slow march to migrate to something else, but it shouldn't be so quickly forced when there are fundamental things like screen cutting tools and some audio platforms that just aren't working properly under it. This guy, Linux Gamer 64, I point blankly refuse to replace my equipment just so I can run my preferred desktop environment. To be dictated in this manner, I might as well run Windows 11, as that is no different to what is happening at the moment. Therefore, I have three choices. 1, block rolling distributions, updating to GNOME 49, Solus, Arch, Endeavor, OS, and Manjaro, which would be my preferred option. 2, switch to Debian 13 Trixie, which is still scheduled to ship with GNOME 48, or switch to Ubuntu 24.04 LTS and enable extended support. However, that will mean a downgrade to GNOME 46. So there you have it. Canonical needs to step in and resume development of Mirror Xmirror server, but not entirely in the way it was. Rethink and redesign the server. Design it to be user developer friendly. Supplement with APIs. All right. This guy says, who says, ho, ho, ho. I guess that's a Santa Claus looking dude. Okay. Ho, ho, ho. Time to ditch GNOME. No one wants and needs it. I personally prefer XFCE, but all consumer notebooks come pre-installed with KDE. There's a reason for that. Heavy degraded development and UX desperately trying to mimic Windows 8, which was a failure. I'm not sure which desktop's trying to do. Is he trying to say KDE's trying to do that? I have no idea. But also to say nobody wants or needs GNOME. I don't know. A lot of people use GNOME. A lot of people like GNOME. It's just a matter of opinion. It's not my cup of tea, but I'm familiar with it at least. This guy does say 100% incorrect. And understand this, Linux Gamer 64, this is the guy that will not use Wayland. He does come to the defense to say GNOME is a popular desktop environment, even if they have taken to failing the user triggering system-wide changes with a not ready protocol. Of course, that's he's talking there about what we talked about with Fedora 42 disabled X without the ready protocol hit. GNOME is popular, as stated above. It is this guy's preferred desktop environment. Time to ditch GNOME. No one wants to need it. That's your opinion. No more. I agree. I agree here with Linux Gamer 64. We can't say nobody wants it or needs it. Clearly, a number of people want to need it. Like, for example, Tails uses GNOME. Even with some of the controversy in GNOME, the reason Tails uses GNOME is it is highly documented. This is their words. It is highly documented and highly functional in modern equipment. That's why they use it. I would agree with Linux Gamer there. Again, not my cup of tea, but to each his own, and I'm glad we have options. This guy is a remote desktop considered an edge case. It's crazy there's still no working remote desktop solution for Wayland. And I did see another article somewhere. I don't think I have it. It's not in my collection here, but I did see something where there was some RDP that was properly working with Wayland. I think that might have been an Ubuntu system. I can't remember. But they had this default back to X in order to make it work unattended, which, the entire purpose you run remote desktop is unattended. If you're running remote desktop from across the room, get off your chair and put the bag of Doritos down. Okay, folks, let's go. All right. This guy just calls for a boycott. That's Linux Gamer again. So I suppose for 1 minute it will make a difference, but I've not been in contact with GNOME developers pleading for X session to remain available in GNOME 49. Long shot, but I know it's worth it. May I urge anyone who's affected by it to do the same? Yeah. Of course, we have some controversy about mentioning the dreaded Lunduke name anywhere on the GNOME forums. Of course, that results in an insta ban because those people are crazy over there at GNOME. Yeah, I actually read a few GNOME posts the other day. Like, they drop Lunduke just to get mad about it. They're like professionally angry over there at GNOME. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I want to be mad. Just talk about Brian Lunduke. It's like, stop. But anyway, let's see. For me, 3D artists probably means the end of GNOME or even Linux altogether. Many apps I struggle with have a lot of crashes to working in Wayland. Some even refuse to start. Their developers have have other or more important for them to tackle porting it to Wayland. So that's true. There's a lot of, especially edge niche hardware that you really need X, and to completely remove it. In this case here, though, there are plenty of desktops that are not removing it. There are plenty of distros that are not removing it. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a taste into this system here. We are seeing a lot of controversy still. I actually do think it is good for one distribution like Fedora and one desktop environment like GNOME to completely strip X entirely out of it, so you can get a better, clearer picture of who needs what and how things get working. Now, the downside, of course, a lot of apps that we use on a regular basis might completely disappear if the developers just do not have the time or the patience to migrate from X to Wayland. That is a possibility. For me, I'm still looking for a decent screen recorder that works consistently on Wayland. There's dozens of them that work well on X. I can't find one that works consistently across every Wayland system I've used. I've tried. I've looked at a lot of different things. So OBS would work, but OBS is really big and bulky for just trying to do some screenshots. Whereas like simple screen recorder works awesome under X, doesn't work under Wayland unless it has changed in the last couple years. And then there's a number of other ones that I've tried that have worked in my initial tests, but if I've tried to make those my go-to, they are hit and miss. Sometimes they work on Wayland, sometimes they don't, and I haven't resolved exactly why. So I do support this move, but I don't support this move for everybody. We need to hold the majority of Linux back with the option to choose which window compositor you are using, so that we can maintain productivity with solid systems that functionally work. And maybe we also need to spend a little bit of time talking to new users about neutrally about Wayland and X. And hey, if you need some app and it's not working right, check to see if you need to switch compositors. I know I tested some stuff in Cosmic. It's like, wow, this does not work under, there was a Cosmic utility. It doesn't work under Cinnamon. Well, that's because I was running it under X. I actually ran Cinnamon experimental Wayland, worked great, So there's things that you need Wayland to run. There's things you need X to run, and being a little bit more clear about it, that is a useful thing. So while I do agree X does potentially need to be removed down the road, we can't just really quick get rid of it, because there's a lot of things that still need it to function. So there are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below.